Hello everybody, welcome to the latest Worlds of ZZT livestream. Tonight we're going to be continuing our Joy of ZZT series and making more objects basically. If you missed last week's episode, you picked a bad one to miss because we started doing programming. We began, and absolutely did not finish, making a little mall. We learned how to make some fish move around, counter, person behind the counter, a little store. Some shops, the mall directory. We made a friendly debug object for testing that gave us some gems and took away some health. And the last thing we did was this more complex sort of way of healing with a rejuvenation chamber. You pay 10 gems, message gets sent to open up a door, step inside and your health is refreshed to 100. We never actually attached it to anywhere. Hopefully we'll have time to do that today. Let's get back to where we left off. And since it's been a week, let's start with something simple. As I said here in our little mall map, this area is going to be a food court. So I'm going to make myself some chairs out of text. With some tables. Copy and paste that. Can we cram 2 rows here? That's a decent amount. As your basic ZZT chair and table situation. And we can put some folks at these tables. Actually, let me pretend this is our first object for the sake of anybody who missed last week. So F2 for creature, O for object. You get a little smiley face. Hit enter to adjust its properties. Change its character. I've been using this guy for aliens, Martians specifically. We talked about how you can change the cycle, which is basically the responsiveness. 1 is the fastest. 0 actually you can set like this and it will just never do anything. Yeah, set it to 1, open up its program, and we'll just talk to an alien here. So you can give objects names with the @ symbol here. That'll get displayed up top, kind of like where it says program editor here, but in the ZZT scroll equivalent. And we use our first end command, which will tell this object to stop running code. This object name always has to be the first line if you're giving an object a name. That's the only place where it's checked. A touch label, which anytime you touch an object, if it's got that, it'll jump to this part of its code. And then just typing in text. Gotta be specific to my branding here. This game takes place on Mars. Then are some other commands, like play, which will play some sound effects. I'll try and make an angry tone here to the best of my ability. I don't know a thing about music, so we're just gonna lower the octave and play some angry notes. Be bad. That sounds angry enough. And as we mentioned last week, Kevin has a not particularly accurate music test with Control T. You can see on the bottom right. But it's a rough approximation. It'll get you the idea of it for simple sound effects at least. How's this sound? That sounds like they're extremely disappointed. That worked very well. We don't actually need another end command because it's the last line of the code, but a lot of times I end up putting one there out of habit. We saw that if you hit F1 with a command entered, Kevin's help will jump right to the relevant spot. It's got some pretty solid help. It mentions a lot of some of the weird oddities and lesser known commands that aren't even mentioned in the original manual. So let's put a couple of grumpy aliens around. Nobody likes having their lunch disturbed. We've been doing various counters, and you can also see in the top right of the Kev Edit window that 45 out of 150, that's basically our stat limit. So we're using about a third of the possible objects we can put on the board. And we mentioned some things, methods of saving space. These guys here, if we hit Control T, they're actually blink wall rays instead of objects, which is a free way of getting this kind of double horizontal character in whatever color you like. Another popular method is using white text. You can hit F4 to toggle text mode, Control A, which will bring up the character prompt so you can draw with whatever character you like. Just going to make a little counter here. Put these in our buffer. We'll have a robot run this place. Pick our robot character. And they're not going to do anything, so we don't need any code or to mess around with their cycle. Add some more decoration to this little kitchen. Actually, we can make it very classically kitcheny. Use some fake walls. Make a little checkerboard pattern. Let's see. Do some generic kitchen counters and cupboards. Do something with the backgrounds. Actually, let's do a background for everything. Hello. Welcome. That looks like... Actually, let's do this the other way around. Dark gray on blue. There we go. Now there's a little kitchen sink or something there. Don't have much of a purpose for this area, but some decoration never hurts. Ideally, we'll come up with something so that it's worth the player's time checking out this corner. Actually, we should definitely make them be able to approach the counter. So we'll make this one an object, and let's kind of hint at that, since we've got the object behind it, that that's where you'd speak from and touch this one. RoboChef 2000. And just like our aliens eating their food, start with an end. Now if we make this just one line of text and nothing else, when they talk to this RoboChef, it's only going to display at the bottom. and that's fine, but you can always add an extra line and just force it to be a two-liner. Actually, let me double check that works just like this. I'm pretty sure it should just fine with a blank line below. Let's hop over to Zeta. Let's test that a bit. We can also see what our music actually sounds like. We can also see one of ZZT's little annoyances if we start talking to several of them really fast. Music will kind of buffer up like that, which is ultimately for the best, because otherwise objects would be sort of frozen until they play their music, which would be a lot worse. But you do need to consider that. One trick you can do is, instead of having these objects play the music, you can have them send a message to another object, now that play the music, and if you lock it while it's playing the music, you won't get that sort of duplicate sound. Actually, we'll tab back and do that afterwards. Let's talk to this robot. Yeah, so that works just fine. I think a lot of times people will just add a blank line with a $sign, which is what does the white centered text. But you can just have any old blank line. So let's decouple our audio. We'll instead send a message to the sound effect objects. I'll have it play angry. We mentioned in the last video as well, you can comment things with the apostrophe. But some commands have several sort of variations, which will just let you do things in a much shorter manner. You can also just say SFX angry. That's all you actually need. Then we get to run into the interesting thing about ZZT, which is code is always somewhere on the board. So even though we want an object to handle some sound effects for us, it's got to exist somewhere. And obviously the easiest thing to do is just shove it in a corner. What color did we have here? Purple on red. Purple on red. There we go. You can't even tell there's an object there, which can be tough for testing. It's easy to forget. Corners are kind of like the go-to spot to put things, but they could be anywhere really. You can just hide them in any walls. You can make one of these things an object. If you're ever hunting down objects in your games or somebody else's with KevEdit, just Control+O. They'll all reveal themselves. Actually, with the color contrast there, that guy in the lower right is still kind of tough to see, but you can at least tell that something's changing there. Let's see, we called it SFX and angry? Yes. So we have a sound FX object, which normally will do nothing. And we're going to actually want to... Let's do this the classic ZZT way. We'll leave it cycle 3 over here. And the very first thing that'll happen when the board starts is once it gets a chance to run this code, it'll change to cycle 1 this way. So that way we'll get it running at the fastest speed. This is where KevEdit's copy and paste comes in handy. This guy's still got it. HBAD. Again, jumping from corner to corner really quickly by just Alt and the arrow keys. It's for much faster board navigation. We are going to tell this object to lock itself, which will prevent it from hearing any external messages, and then unlock itself. But again, the music is put in a buffer, so this is going to happen very quickly. It's pretty much going to lock add the sound to ZZT's sort of sound cue, and then immediately unlock. So we'd still probably be able to kind of jam up music like this. So if you're doing music, especially if you're doing like a complex song that's going across lines and lines of play commands, kind of want to just space it out with some idles. And I mean, I'm just kind of guessing that this will be enough time. Each idle at cycle 1, roughly 1/10 of a second. I think it's actually slightly faster. But this should, you can also see this is where that bind command from last week comes in handy instead of doing it this way. Because then we'd just be changing one object. But this should be a bit more, a bit less. I gotta determine what my sentence is. It'll be a bit easier on your ears. Okay, so we only got 2 there, so our idles aren't quite long enough, but that was still definitely an improvement. So again, we'll just copy and paste. That'll be more than enough time, I hope. You could also technically adjust the cycle here, and then you'll need fewer idles, but easiest to do it this way. Ah, my first forgetting to switch to KevEdit of the stream. We just doubled up our idles, that's all. Copied and pasted. Okay, now I think we should be good. There we go. 3 Martians, 1 message, 1 sound effects. It's a bit better. So what I was hoping to do last week, and we never got a chance to start, was I wanted to actually sort of turn this into another purple key room. And that is why I decided in the small directory that we're going to have a scrap shop. And do that here. Again, make some counters. Do a nice dark red in our vertical blink wall raise in the turning menu. Another Martian shopkeeper. And some garbage. But most importantly, we are going to hint that there is definitely something to the shop. Put in the corner. We'll put a purple key in the corner. So, player will see that and say, hey, I need that. And we'll have to figure out how the heck they're supposed to get it. So we're going to introduce a couple more commands here, and we're also going to end up leaving this board for a little bit. First and foremost, put ourselves with a little object here. Another easy way to indicate that, hey, this is the part you can interact with, is to give it a different character. Not a huge fan of how it looks like that, but it'll do. So we're going to start making it so that touching an object multiple times causes different actions. So first time we talk to this dude, we're going to just get a little introduction. Actually, I do want to just check my consistency here. Were these others? caps, bind Raymond. Oh yeah, that actually reminds me. We did have a bug last week that we never quite got fixed, where all these guys here were saying bind Raymond, and an object named Raymond here, but it wasn't binding correctly. And that is simply because we also had this guy named Raymond. So bind is going to find the first thing named Raymond and make that the code. So these guys are just trying to walk constantly and move up and down, which they can't. And this guy doesn't have a touch label, so nothing happens when we touched it. Easiest way to do fix this. We don't need to give this object a name if nothing's going to be sending it a message. And it's not going to be displaying any text either. Okay. So now we'll talk to this dude. So we're gonna go back to our killer robot factory, and all the garbage that we had there, we're gonna turn that into collectible items. So the first time we talk to this guy, he's gonna just display this message. The second time, we'll start doing some more interactions. We'll get to those later. Right now though, every time you touch that tile, it's just gonna display this message. So you need to do something to make it go to this touch instead. And the way we do that is with the zap command, which is zap and then a label name. And what that does is it finds the very first matching label, and it actually turns the colon into an apostrophe. It is literally commenting out code. So then, if you touch this object, it won't find a match until it gets to this point. Easy enough. There's definitely some quirks to it we'll maybe come across later, but for now, basic usage. We talk to the guy, we zap the label, and then the next time we'll just get this one instead. So let's go back to our killer robot factory, way back when. It's been several weeks. And we had this pile of garbage. And we're going to do this. I'm going to turn all these objects into objects with some code. And in this case, we're going to introduce another new command, which is the set command. And also, actually I'm surprised this one didn't come up at all yet, the die command, which makes an object die, or vanish from existence, however you want to look at it. Now, this alone is a good start, but we want a couple of these. I'm thinking of just making every light gray item here something you can collect. Problem is, flags, sets a flag. If we go near W for our world info, you can view your list of flags. By default, they're all blank, but you only get 10. And they can't share a name. So if we have all 5 objects say set scrap, you're just going to end up with scrap set once. So we're actually going to, there's a couple of ways you can do this. We could do something like set scrap 1 on this one, set scrap 2 on the next one. Then later on, first of all, we're using a whole bunch of flags, which we've got 5 here. Yeah, we're going to have 5 here. That's half of the possible limit, which is not good. And then you're also, when it comes time to sell these back to that dude, we're going to have to check for all 5 of those flags one by one. So we're going to instead make that check here with the if command. And we saw this with the health shop, where we used if contact to check if we were next to the player, back before we'd actually restore their health for that little animation. The if command is versatile. You can check for preset sort of flags like contact and alignment, and if an object is blocked, that sort of thing. You can also just check for a flag. If scrap, then can't. And again, we could write this line of code in like a billion possible ways. All of these are the exact same thing. But we'll use the most simplified one as our actual code, which will just check for a flag, and by default it'll assume that you just provide a label to jump to. We're also going to not include an end command here after the die, because the object will have disappeared once that line of code executes, so it doesn't really matter what's below it. There we go, that's not quite as angry. So let's see. So we'll do this. We don't need an end. Yeah, that's all we need. We'll go to these other objects, make them bind scrap so that they basically point to the same code. We'll put our player back here for testing purposes. And I guess we do need to attach the small to somewhere, because I kind of have to have us going back and forth between boards at this point. So let's do that quick. What do we got? Where's some room? Well, I guess it's going to be to the east, since that's the only spot we really haven't messed around with. But yeah, let's just do that. So I'm going to actually do this. Before, I've always just been sort of lining up my board edges by just positioning the cursor and counting tiles. I'm going to do it like this way. And I don't know what this board is, so I'll just call it east of hub. Move the player off of that edge. There we go. Now I know I have a good connection on both sides. And we'll make the top part connect to them all. And we'll connect our boards back in the board info with I. Attach it to the hub. Hit asterisk. That'll connect the hub to east of hub as well. I guess we get to draw ourselves a simple board again. And again, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I have no idea if these board connections are any good. And also I definitely changed it so that the bottom part connects to them all. the way this is actually laid out, I'm going to actually do this. We're going to make both paths the same, just because there's no real reason to sort of lock things away like this. There's not any benefit, it's just going to make it longer to travel around. So what does a Martian mall look like from the outside? Actually, I'm going to not use blink wall rays, I'm going to use the traditional line wall tool. That's clearly a perfect mall sign. Yeah, we made it mostly purple, didn't we? Purple and red. Let's stick with some of those colors a bit. Actually, let's do one of those little fades again. So we'll do a solid, and we'll fade it to dark purple. Put this in our buffer. Shrink our buffer with the less than key. And I know there was a... Oh, yeah, flood select. There we go. So G for the gradient tool, F to flood select. Don't like how that looks, but we've got more important things to worry about. I'm gonna resize my buffer again. Clear this out. Plop down a passage. Shut off default colors, because passages have color rules normally. So this way I get exactly what I pick. So it'll be bright purple on dark purple. It'll connect to the mall. We go back to the mall. And the way passages work is basically you want the passage colors to match. If you do that, the player will spawn on top of the corresponding passage. If you don't do that, they will spawn wherever the player is currently on the board. So they wind up in this spot right here. And okay, that was a lot all at once. I'm sorry for that. We didn't have the outside of the mall, so. So let's do a little debug save. We'll save here in the robot factory. And we'll play our world. We should mute that sound. We're going to pick up a piece of scrap. We should be unable to pick up more scrap because we've got scrap. Perfect, looking good. Get to go to the mall. This is a long walk for testing purposes. We actually don't even have any code in here to test that, so that walk was kind of pointless. So let's go on back and code the scrap shop guy to actually recognize that we've got some scrap metal to sell. I don't even remember. This board is called what? Obviously we're running into some issues. We don't need it. So I'm going to open my board menu. I'm going to make sure I am on the correct board before I do this, because I'm going to delete the board entirely with the backspace key. Now it's gone forever. And we're back in the mall. It was, but I think that was when I was having like weird problems with pre-binding things. So actually another thing worth quickly pointing out too is you can actually use left and right arrows and rearrange boards. Which, I mean, if we really want to, we can put it, you know, with the hub since it connects there, or however whatever works best for you. It is smart about board and passage connections. Doing this won't break anything with that. I bet it will handle it all properly. So I'm just going to leave it as is, but back in the mall. Oh, killer robots are like foundational on Mars. Look, I mean, there's several working in this mall. There's no complaints from the Martians so far. So we go back to this dude. Oh, actually, I didn't demonstrate zap working, but I think you'll take my word for it for now, and we're going to see it in the next test anyway. So, let's see. Like we did with our previous shops, we're going to bring up a list of choices with some hyperlinks. And I don't have any plans to actually let the player buy anything. So we're just going to do this. And we're also going to use the if check here for scrap. We're going to, instead of jumping to a label, we're going to actually append some text. So you're going to say if scrap, then, and again, that then is optional. If scrap then, of course this does kind of, I was doing this last week too, I don't need this space. ZZT will add a space and make it look pretty in actual gameplay. So you can see kind of squished on room with our flag name and that optional then, and get some breathing room by getting rid of it if we want. Then we get our labels here. And if the player selects this line, they'll jump to this label. There's a discount on... What's their discount on? Viewer participation. I'm leaving it up to chat here. I kind of like rocket fuel, but I also don't quite know how this game is going to end, and I can very much see rocket fuel being like an important thing. So I'm going to go with lug nuts on this one. And so now we're going to do our selling. Now, because we already made our check here, we're safe. We know they have scrap if they get to this point. We could have just always had that option and just done something like, and in which case they'd always be able to select it, and we need to make sure that they actually have scrap metal down here instead. But I'm just going to do it sort of all at once like this. Got some scrap. The one downside is I didn't specify how much the scrap is going to sell for. So I'm going to end up adding in like an extra prompt here. So that might be an advantage if we didn't do it this way and we had a nice full line where you can say sell scrap 10 gems or whatever. But in this case, we're just going to do another message and another prompt. And as we mentioned last week, we can do this sort of empty label as a fake choice. It's the same as just closing the window out. Kind of messes up with Kevet's syntax highlighting, but that's okay. This is a valid line. Then we'll do our next line for actually selling the scrap. In which case we want to get rid of that flag that we set earlier, which we do with its corresponding clear command. So we clear our scrap. We give gems 10. And this is where I regret making that name take up half of the line. But it'll do. So now we should have a nice working buying and selling system, talk to this guy multiple times. I think we're making a lot more progress than 30 minutes of coding fish. So let's test this out. And you'll note that I saved on the mall and not in the robot factory where we had our scrap. So first, let's see if talking twice works out. They offer to buy this some junk. And since we don't have the scrap flag, the only thing we can do is ask about the key. It's not for sale. So we could run several boards back to the robot factory, and then run back to the mall. But this is where ZZT's cheats come into play. If you open the cheat prompt with question mark, as I'm sure anybody who's watched any of my gameplay streams has seen many, many times, as 90% of ZZT games are horribly designed, we get our nice little cheat prompt. And we can actually set a flag by hand here, with as long as we use plus as a prefix, and then whatever the flag name should be. We call it scrap. It's not case sensitive, so this is just the same. Plus scrap. There's no actual indication that's been set, but we can test it by just talking again to this dude. And there we go. We've got some scrap. They offer to buy it. We accept. And we get 10 gems. And we don't have any more scrap, so we can't do that again. Now we've got some interconnected gameplay. So that gives the player a reason to examine things back in this robot factory. And it kind of serves as a bit of a buffer, because it is kind of, to actually pick up all 5 of these and run back and forth, yeah, you get 50 gems out of it, but you probably don't actually want to do that. That would take a little while, how we have things arranged. And whether that's good or bad is really dependent on how the game is designed. I'm considering these sort of like a little optional thing you can do for the most part, because what we're definitely going to do is we're going to make our poor broken down robot here, that was just an extra slow line, we're going to make them part of this purple key quest with the scrap shop. So we can actually change that, get rid of this line, turn them into an actual object, and actually make them cycle 1 here, because even though I want them moving slowly, I want them responsive when the player actually comes in contact with them. This will be our friendly robot. And we're basically going to do what we did with our fish. I'm going to make a little loop. We'll make a custom loop label. And honestly, let's do it this way. Question mark random. That way they will just try to move in a random direction, and if they can't, whatever. They'll just keep on executing code. And then just command and loop, and it'll send itself back to that label. We do want to slow them down though, because this is going to be a very fast robot if we just leave it like this at cycle 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 whole direction commands, that's going to take 10 cycles to get through. So it'll move as slowly as it did before, even though it's running at a significantly faster speed. So our thing here is going to be that you can free this robot. It's been trapped behind all this scrap. Huh. First time in forever that I actually wanted to use caps lock, and apparently KevEdit doesn't respect it. Strange. I'm going to do its dialogue like this, so I have some room to actually type a message. Let's have some fun with this. I'm going to lock the objects, display the message, and we're going to sort of break it up. We'll do this, we'll make it idle, so it'll stop parsing text here. The player will get just this as a message box. We'll animate the poor robot malfunctioning a bit. Let's see. Let's go with an asterisk. And again, if you're doing the character command that we saw, did we use the character command? Yes, because somebody definitely made the char, as in Charmander, command. Somebody made that joke. So we definitely saw this last week, but again, if you type the command and do Control-A to insert a special character, KevEdit will be smart about it and translate it into the number for you, so you don't actually have to memorize ASCII character codes at all, which is very convenient. Turn back into that lion character. We'll continue his dialogue. So now we're going to put ourselves in an interesting situation here with this robot. We're going to actually make them walk off the board, but they're moving around randomly. So we don't quite know how that's going to play out. And just because I want to edit this a bunch, I'm going to actually copy and paste onto a new board. just so I can play around more freely. As you can see, we end up getting a player clone when we copy and paste a player. Don't want that. So place our proper player right on top. Because we can pick up this scrap and they'll be freed. We can pick up this scrap or this one and then this one and they'll be freed. And we also don't know which of these tiles this object is going to be on in the first place when we talk to it. So you actually have to handle all of this. And we did lock it, so once the object gets touched, it's going to run through this code and it's going to leave. We don't have to worry about the player touching it again and breaking things. So close that out. And now we need to make it leave. And our level geometry can make that difficult. So what we're going to want to do is kind of flatten these possible options. I'm going to assume it starts here, and I'm going to move it up to here. And just get sort of a consistent tile no matter what. And that's where using try or the shortened question mark command for movement is going to help out a lot. Actually, it's going to be more complex than this because there's a possibility that this object is here, this object is here, the robot is here, and the player is here, and in which case this thing is entirely surrounded until the player gets out of the way. So I'm going to start off and handle that case. We're going to do another loop here, player check. And we're going to do what we did with our rejuvenation chamber, if contacts. Now, actually, I'm going to negate this. If not contacts, leave. And then we're going to idle. And we're going to loop here. So that way, we can safely know that the player is not next to us. And I'm specifically doing if not contacts, because if I did it as if contacts, you could just have it jump right back to the loop, no problems. The only problem there, as we mentioned, with if you're using like DOSBox, that's gonna make things a bit laggy, because it's going to deal with running this command something like 30 times a cycle. It's gonna make this check. If we do it this way, it only has to make a check once per cycle. So doing this, we'll know that the player is out of the way. We'll have it move north, but only if it's not blocked. So we're going to use try with that. If the robot happens to be up top when you talk to it, try north isn't going to do anything. And yes, Snorb is correct, objects can push the player around, but the case I was worried about would be the player here and the object here, and there'd just be a wall. There wouldn't be anything to push the player away from. So this means that we know we're in the top row. Similarly, we're just going to move east a couple times, 2 tiles maximum. And again, question mark is just an alias of try. So now we're confident that we're here. But we're actually still not completely confident because the player could be in the way. We also don't know which of these scraps has been picked up either. Let's do this. I'm trying to think of the best way to handle this. Making this more complex than I kind of wanted to with this layout. Well, I'm committed. Try north. try east. No, I don't like. I'm making this way more complex than I want to. I'm gonna redo this layout slightly, because we got a lot to handle with the player being there. The smart thing to do would be to just find something to make the player get out of the way. I mean, you could just have this object run a die command and disappear instantly. But I'm gonna play with our layout just a little. Not gonna look as cool, I'm afraid. That should make things a little bit easier. Same thing. Copy and paste that layout. So now we get a much easier solution. Oh, shoot, I just overwrote the changes that I did when I made the demonstration board. Player check. If not contact. Leave. And also you can sort of combine commands on one line if it's something like this, a directional movement to a regular command. So now, with this collected. Now that's still not good because there's nothing that actually stops the player from just collecting this and not talking to the robot immediately. And then it can technically be anywhere on the board. It can just move at will. So we're going to actually change its movement pattern. Good enough. So now it'll just go south, north, south, north. It'll pace back and forth forever. So then we'll safely know that it's only in one of these two tiles. You could also do something like have picking up this scrap send a message to this object. But, taking a lot more time on this than I would have liked to. So we're just going to do that and move back and forth. The player is not in contact. Then it can safely move south because the player isn't standing on either of these tiles. We're going to solve that in testing. It's going to move south and it's going to move east a whole bunch. Simple as that. We'll do walk east, so it'll just walk on its own. And then once it hits the wall, it will disappear. And also remember, we're running at cycle 1, so even though we slowed it down with idles here, we can't really do that with walk. That's just always going to execute a step to the east every cycle. So I'm going to actually crank down its cycle for this part. And I believe we should be good. Hopefully. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so touching from the top. That animation plays a little too quickly to really notice if you're not looking for it. Okay, so yeah, he's just going to wait until we leave. And one difference between walking and going with slash commands or the go command is that walking won't push. So we get to sort of lead them out if we like. I don't know why thud didn't go off, but it's a good start. And we'll try again. Let's do the complex one. We touch them from the bottom. Okay, so we're at least good with that. back to our editor. Now if we replace that walk, and that was really slow, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. If we replace that walk with a bunch of /east commands, player will get shoved, which is fine. But I'm not too worried with that. Thud. Oh, that's why. So actually, we'll never hit thud because way back here we locked the object, and while we can make it jump to labels within its own code, thud is considered an external event. So if the object is locked, it will not jump to that label. We could just unlock it, but then we run into the issue of, well, if the player touches them again, it'll jump back to here. So I'm just gonna not do the walking. I'm gonna just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps to the east. And then it will die. And also, we wanna... Yes, that's another alternative. We could keep using walk, and we could zap touch so that you can't touch the object again. And then thud will work, and there won't be a touch label to worry about. In fact, we could just zap touch here and not worry about locking, period. But we've got this, so we'll go with that. And lastly, robot saved. We'll set a flag for that. This time, we'll not break everything. Is that the right layout? Let me just copy it from here entirely and be sure. Yes, we're good. Okay. So now we've got scrap, we've got a robot we can rescue. And if the robot is rescued, we'll make them appear in the scrap shop, because that's where they work. So we're going to make an invisible object. Just call them friend bot. Player's not going to interact with this, so they're not going to see that name. We'll have them run a loop, and make sure that there's cycle 1 here. So we want that loop running quick. If, what do I call it? Robot saved. I should really be paying attention to my flag names. Robot saved, yes. Back to the wall. If robot saved appear, again, we're gonna slow down the loop so it doesn't make this check a billion times a second with just an idle command. So it'll check once, it'll idle, that'll end its cycle, and then it'll loop on its next tick. Make it appear. Change the character. We'll also, what do we call this guy? Scrap shop owner. Let's see, there's a couple ways we can do this. I'm going to do it the silly way. I'm going to make another object here. So this here, if we touch this tile before the robot's been saved, there's nothing visible behind the counter, it'll act, it won't do a thing. This sort of will imply that there's supposed to be a second somebody behind the counter. But if the robot has been saved, And we're going to actually do a couple things. We're going to make this get rid of the flag, because there's no sense saving the flag when we're done using it. We're going to zap touch, because we don't want to have to worry about this part executing, otherwise we would still need the flag. And we're going to actually put another touch immediately below it. So if you touch this object and you have that robot saved flag, this check will fail. It'll keep going through its code, clear out robot saved, zap the touch, it'll hit a label, and it'll just keep on going. And then next time, since this one will be zapped out to this, it'll just jump to here when you talk to them. And actually I lied. We're not going to have that zap. Well, we're going to have the zap touch. We're not going to have the next touch label there. We're going to have this dialog only activate once. We'll send friend bot to reward. We will close out this and go back to friend bot. Actually slow them down very slightly. So technically it'll take longer for them to appear on the board, but it's going to be very decent. It's still going to be pretty quick. And I call it reward. Reward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 east. 2 north. Mark that off. 5 east. 2 north, 2 east, 2 north. So now we're going to quote unquote pick up the key with this object, and we're just going to do this by putting to the north an empty. And that'll put an empty tile on the space above it. And that will actually try and push the key, and the key is pushable, but since it's blocked, it won't be able to push, and instead the key will just be erased from existence. And then we'll have the object run back. Do it the easy way. 1, 2, 3, 4 south, 7 west. Have it take a moment to pick up the key, add some idles. Go back here. And what we got? Let's call it scrapbot, because I don't like spaces in object names when I'm sending them labels. That can get screwy. Scrapbot, give key. Go back to here. Our scrapbot, the counter objects. And we'll actually have this thing put a key to the west. And if we just say put west key, it's going to use whatever color the tile is that's next to it, so that's not going to be what we want. We're going to specify a color and say purple key. And then so now we can have it do its second touch. But we are going to run into the issue where if they touch this counter during the animation, it'll jump to here. Could have it lock. just do it like this. Here, this will be an easy check. No, that won't work. Oh, there we go. Snorp's got a straightforward solution. This guy's cycle. I'm gonna definitely make him cycle 1. He'll run a little faster than I necessarily like, but it'll be smoother that way. So if they're not blocked to the east, that means our animation is running. Otherwise, so killer robot. I think this big old mess should all work. Let's take it from the top. And see that the robot has appeared in the corner there. Okay. Good, good, good. Looks solid. Let's go back. Do one more test real quick. That way I don't have to do a bunch of walking again. Okay, so I got a debug object there. That'll give me the robot saved flag. And I'm just going to hold right. So I think we're good. Yeah, okay. We're not, this doesn't appear to be breaking. Oh, I lied. Look, we just broke it. We didn't actually get the key because we touched the object at just the right time. So it needs a little more nuance, lest we run the risk of soft locking our game. Let's see. I'm trying to think of a simple way to do this rather than introducing more complex stuff with zapping remotely and things like that. My rewards, they pick up the key. Ah, here we go. I think this will do it. Add a second check here. Say if any purple key, end. So if there's a purple key, no, because that's still not going to do anything. Because the problem is that when it's just about to jump to this label, it's ending up jumping to this one because we touched the object. So I think a better idea is I'm just going to get rid of this section entirely. I'm going to get the purple key. And do it like this. So now we touch the object once, touch gets zapped, so there's no touch label. So we are going to do something a little more advanced than I was kind of hoping, but we'll get to give key. You'll put a key over here. It'll loop basically until that purple key is picked up. Then, otherwise, if there's not a purple key, so yeah, I'm making this loop silly. If not any purple key, touch time, because it's time to touch the object again. So once the purple key's been collected, this loop will end by jumping to this label. And this is going to be a wild one, but hear me out. The opposite of zap is restore. We're going to restore touch. Now, with the code as is, when we first touch this, it gets zapped, turns into that. Restore, we'll change it back. Not quite what we want, because then it'll start looking through this robot saved stuff again. So we're going to actually do this. At the top of the code, we're going to have a pre-zapped label by basically writing a comment called touch. I wasn't planning on showing that off because it's a weird nuanced thing, but so yeah, pre-zapped labels are technically a thing you can do. It's kind of weird, but it works. And this is a horrible first example for restore, having it with something like this. And to the point where I want to think up a clean zap restore example to show off after this. But let's check this real quick just to make sure it all works. You're doing some ZZT bullshit here, but it's all good. Touch our debug object, get our flag, back to our message, hold right. There we go. It works. We've solved our killer robot puzzle of our own design. So let's see. Honestly, I just want to demonstrate zap and restore in a nicer way. I'll do it like this. We'll block a door off. We'll talk to them once. I guess that counts as a purple key to the east. It is another purple key. That brings us to 3 now. Right? Mall, killer robots. And I gave one in like the park, yeah, so we're getting there. Talk to him once, he says, wow, an arcade. Talk to him twice. Talk to him 3 times. And we're going to see our zaps and restores again. And I used the wrong character. Club, not spade. And as we can see, straightforward 1, 2, 3 messages. They zap, they get restored. So you can see we get a little loop there. It'll cycle through all the messages, but if you actually look at our code here, we zap once, we zap twice, we only restore once. For whatever reason, it's zap and restore, even though they complement each other, they aren't consistent with each other. When you zap a label, it goes to the top of the code, finds the first instance of the label, turns it into a comment. Touch again. Hit zap touch, jumps back to the top of the code, starts scanning through, finds the label, comments it out. Touch 3rd time. Now we see restore touch. And for some reason, this jumps to the top of the object, scans for the label, scans for the commented out label, correction, restores it. And then it keeps going. And it finds the next instance, and it restores that too. And it'll just restore every single commented out touch will turn into a proper label again. So you only ever use restore once. It's weird. It causes problems. If you want to zap and restore to an arbitrary amount, you'll wind up doing something like restore touch, then immediately zapping touch. And if we do it like that, we should only see the WoW and arcade message once. It's definitely one of ZZT's quirkier behaviors. WoW and arcade. Wish I had money, knew any combos. Wish I had money, knew any combos. So it's kind of weird like that. I don't know why it's like that. Would probably be a lot easier if it wasn't, but that's the way it is. Let's call him child, because I'm going to make him get a message. And man, little kids blocking arcade doors, nobody wants that. I'm going to talk to his Martian parental unit. Now, I kind of made all of these dudes say the same message, so I want to do something to indicate that this object is going to be a little different somehow. Easiest way. Well, we'll just make him a robot instead. Family can be a Martian child and a killer robot. Different character and color are good. But I've been 100% consistent with that. So we'll just do this one. Or alternatively, we can make it a mall cop and kick this child out for loitering. So actually, you know what? We can use another flag here. The very first one, set. Annoying kid. And since our layout means that it's just going to loop these 2 messages, we only have to worry about that flag being set once. Poor kid is going to have a rough day. Mallbots. And just like before, we'll check for the flag before displaying the hyperlink message. Annoying kid. Will be a narc. Again, we'll lock this object so we can do our little animations. We'll show off another fun feature here. We'll move south 3 times and we'll know that they're at this bottom spot. And I'm going to specifically use slashes instead of question marks, so that way if the player is in the way, they'll be pushed to the bottom here, but they'll keep trying to move south until the player leaves. So that way we can very 100% confident say that eventually Mallbot will hit this tile down here. And then let's count this off. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think that was 34. It's 10, 20, 30. I'll show you a fun trick that we've yet to see. We've seen moving with slashes and goes and question marks and tries, and we've seen moving back and forth with walk. And we're going to actually combine the two here. I could do math, but I refuse. So we're actually going to walk east and move east a whole lot. And actually, I don't need this many if I'm doing it this way. I only need half. So 34. Oh no, I have to do 34 divided by 2, and that's math. So 17. 10 plus 7. And let's just see what this looks like real quick if we combine walking and moving. Mallbot acknowledges, and we can wait here forever while poor Mallbot never gets to save the day. But here they go. So it'll actually combine, and they get to move 2 steps in a single cycle, making them the fastest possible speed ZZT can deal with. So they get to move extra fast. This dude is on a mission, and that mission is to annihilate a child for loitering in a mall. I'll also tell them to stop walking, which doesn't matter yet, but it will when that small child gets out of the way. Is that how you spell premises? So the lock command means that objects will ignore any external messages. So if we touch them during this whole sequence while they're running across the board, they'll ignore it. If we don't have the lock here, they could start moving to the east a couple times, and then you could start this whole conversation over, and then they'll start trying to walk south again, and it'll just break horribly. And we undo that with unlock. Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one who doesn't know how to spell words. From ice ease. Thanks, Chrome. And I could do a 10-second timer, but I don't want to. We'll do some more sound effects with my traditional sound effect style of just typing what's going on. What's this gonna sound like? That's bad. I don't need to check that in ZZT to realize how bad that is. That's a good warning sound, actually. We'll do that. And there, that's not problematic at all. Make sure this all works. Talk to the kid. Talk to Mallbots. Why did that not play? This animation is also way too fast. Did I get rid of the play command? I have no idea why that didn't play. Why was there no sound there? All this should happen. I can't. I could make this all, yeah, up here, line by line. After years of ZZT, I've finally been convinced I prefer the pop-ups. It's not a big deal with something like this where it's not a ton of text, but I've watched way too many cutscenes that go on for way too long. Although I guess there's nothing stopping the player from running around the board. Yeah, let's convert it just so we can see what that looks like. So since this thing's cycle 1, I do want to add a good chunk of idles. Make this one extra long. Cram this on one line. Why did that not play? I'm still very... Oh, do I have sound muted? I will laugh. I do, I have the sound turned off. I forget why. It was like in the Robot Factory way back when. Because of the duplicators, that's why it didn't play. Okay, so we'll see what this looks like with flashing messages. I forgot to talk to the child. Okay. You can see this text is going by a little too fast to really read. That's actually worked okay, other than our broken grammar. You have chosen not complied. Those are some beeps. Oh, I didn't. Yeah. Add some more sound effects to our lurching. Okay. And a couple extra idles for good measure on that longer line. That way that's hinted at, in case you talk to Mallbot before you talk to the annoying kid. And similarly, we're going to go back to our mall directory here. Mall rules. There we go. You can come up with your own jokes here, but my joke is simply that the only rule is not to loiter. Our mall is coming along now. We've got 3 empty shops. We got an arcade. I think I left this one just, anonymous because I don't know what I want to do with it. And oh, we did give this one a purpose. This one is the Rejuvenation Station. We need to make a Hot Topic. We need to make an arcade. And we need to make one more building. And I think we're gonna call it a night. It's been close to 2 hours at least. And I don't have any ideas for these other buildings just yet, other than the arcade, but we're not getting into that now. So, next week, I'm taking Tuesday off. I've been doing this for a month straight. I need a stream break. So, February 3rd, nada. Or not February 3rd, March 3rd. We are done with February. March 10th, we'll return to this. Yeah, I can do a last minute show off. We'll see what our whole mall situation is. So under normal circumstances, you'd enter the mall. There'd be a mall directory here. Oop, did it again. Under normal circumstances, you would enter the mall. Be some swimming fish in the middle. A mall directory here listing shops. The very important mall rules. There's this guy here demonstrating flags. Oh, that's right, I left that. I'm gonna actually fix that real quick right now, because I will definitely forget in 2 weeks that we put that debug flag in there. So you talk to this guy and report the loitering. Some extremely surly Martians eating some food. RoboChef making burgers. Empty Hot Topic. Raymond's ray guns, we can buy some ammo. Rejuvenation chamber. Go in here and reset your health. Scrap shop, where this guy tells you he'll buy stuff. Get some zaps and restores to ask about purple keys. That's going to be a to-do also. I should make it so when the purple key's gone that you can't ask him about the purple key anymore. We talked about, was it saved robot? I don't remember my flag name. Robot saved. Robot saved, that's the one. You can rescue a robot, get a purple key out of it. You got this kid blocking the door, cycling through some messages, and we can narc. And that's an almost complete mall. So, actually no, one last thing. Way back in like, I don't know, episode 2, episode 1, I made some notes. And I think next time we'll actually clean some of these up, maybe do the title screen, and we'll worry about finishing them all another time. Well, scrap shop owner, ask about purple key. And I think that will do it. So thank you all for watching. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll hopefully, by the end of March at least, we will have a finished game. If any of you have been working along with me, it would be super cool of you to take a screenshot or two and post it in this Twitter thread I'm about to post. Link that here in chat. So hopefully I'll see you all again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.